way of welcome, I will just say you are all welcome today. I have no particular introductions to make. I've had no apologies, Steve, but can you give us any apologies that you received for absence today?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies from Clive Penny, the monitoring officer. So Debbie Jones, our deputy monitoring officer, has joined us this morning.
Thank you. Welcome, Debbie. So we've got a full house. That's fantastic. And do we have any declarations of interest? I'm not seeing any hands raised. So good. That's excellent. So that was item 3. We can go on then to the minutes of the previous meeting, which is found on page 3 of the agenda. And that meeting was on the 14th of July. And I think we had a fairly good turnout there. We had apologies just from Councillor Ratcliffe at that time. Are those present? You will have seen a draft circulated in advance, but are those present happy to confirm this is a true and accurate record of that meeting, and happy that they are signed? Yeah, Brian, is that the case?
Jack.
Thank you very much. Do we have a seconder? Otherwise, I'll second. I'm just looking round.
Sorry, apology. I can't second because I wasn't there. So
that's all right, Gareth.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. So I'll happily second in relation to that. And can we then just have a show of hands just to formally deal with that? Okay, thank you. So having disposed of that, we then move on to item 5. And Sarah, with are you dealing with this? Your name is attached. Obviously, it feels very up to date because the planning subcommittee on which I sit met only recently, and obviously their views are now being put to this meeting for agreement or otherwise. Yeah, that's it, you, Sarah.
Yes, diolch Cadeirydd, bore da pawb. So this is an update paper of the SDP subgroup. We met on the Monday, the 14th of July. We weren't quorate at that time, so we reconvened briefly on the 25th of September. Essentially, the discussion centred on whether or not we should move forward with a formal delivery agreement for an SDP. So a formal delivery agreement sets out the resources and staffing and timeline of an SDP and needs to be signed off at a ministerial level. The SDP subgroup discussed where each of the partners were in terms of their LDP, what the main sort of concerns were regionally, and whether or not we should progress with the delivery agreement. In terms of the main issues, there are resource constraints across the local planning authorities. At present, there is no policy manager in Banau Brycheiniog, in Ceredigion, and there's a gap in the management of the planning service in Powys as well. There are a number of cross-border planning issues that need to be considered, but the case in terms of whether or not an SDP would resolve those remains relatively weak given the lack of strategic nature of the planning issues across border. So we also have the complexity of Banau Brycheiniog's being in 3 SDP regions. So in terms of any timeline for adoption of an SDP and then LDP lights, it's quite a considerable amount of time because Banau Brycheiniog can't adopt an LDP light until all 3 of the SDPs that they're in the region of would be adopted. So we also have no current manual for an SDP at the moment. There is a draft timeline of December 2026 for the publication of this by Welsh Government. But when we undertook the informal consultation, all 3 of the area all 3 of the partners in this region made quite strong comments about how SDPs need to be flexible in their approach and that not all SDP regions are the same. So we don't know whether those have been taken into account as yet, and we don't know what the manual will directly say. So we're working on the premise of it being almost a carbon copy of the LDP manual, which members around the table will be mindful is incredibly complex, and there's a significant amount of evidence required, and that evidence would be needed for example, transport interchanges in Cardiff as much as it would be needed in Powys and Ceredigion and Banau Brycheiniog when we don't have the same sorts of issues. There's also the added sort of uncertainty around the ongoing Welsh Government consultation on a new national park, in which captures an area in the north of Powys. That would, in effect, require us to have a fourth partner around the table if that national park were adopted. So there's quite a lot of uncertainty. So the discussion at the SDP subgroup was around whether or not we should progress at this time. I do want to draw members' attention to the fact that there is a grant offer from Welsh Government this financial year, and that grant offer is for £200,000 towards SDP preparation, on the condition that the region produces and gets ministerial sign-off of a delivery agreement. If we were minded to do this, then work would need to start as soon as possible in order to meet that timeline, as it is quite tight, because you do need public consultation on your delivery agreement. So we also discussed the marine areas conservation, the marine special area conservation guidance, and noted that at this time there's no material impact on Ceredigion or Powys, but there are expected releases coming over the next few years that could have an impact. So we intend to monitor that. An option paper was presented with a number of options in terms of what the next steps could be for an SDP in this region. Option 1 was to maintain LDP preparation only. This was ranked the highest for being the lowest cost, the shortest timescales, and the greatest autonomy to each of the 3 regions. Option 2 was to undertake the LDPs, then start an SDP, and then the subsequent LDP lights. This was ranked the lowest due to the high cost, long timescales, and the weak case for an SDP in Mid Wales, as well as the uncertainties I've previously mentioned. Option 3 was to consider developing a regional collaboration agreement. This was ranked second, as it offers the potential benefits such as shared evidence base that an SDP would give the region, but it does lack precedent. There aren't any of these in Wales, and conversations would need to be ongoing with Welsh Government as to the palatability of such an approach. So we confirmed a number of recommended actions, and I'll just quickly outline those. Essentially, the recommended actions of the SDP subgroup were to discuss with Welsh Government alternative approaches, including the removal of the statutory SDP duty for Mid Wales, to seek clarification on the LDP review periods and end dates, as a consultation that was recently undertaken by Welsh Government suggested they may look to remove these. I do know, subsequent to this meeting, having met with Welsh Government officers, that there is no intention in this parliamentary term to do that. So it may be that it could be something considered the next parliamentary term, but there was no commitment on the table. So then, this is ongoing. There is quite a lot of work between Powys and Ceredigion and Bannibracaniog looking at shared evidence bases, even sharing resources in some ways. But there is a more formal way we could do this, and we need to investigate what that might look like. So in terms of the actions or the recommendations, the subgroup recommended that the SDP subgroup inform the CJC and seek their opinion as to whether or not they're content that we will not prepare a delivery agreement this financial year, and that will mean that we will not be able to access the £200,000 grant from Welsh Government. That the SDP subgroup or myself, or perhaps the chair of the SDP subgroup, will write to Welsh Government to discuss whether or not they might be interested in a regional planning collaboration agreement, whether what they would consider to be appropriate in that, and whether it was a pragmatic alternative to an SDP in this region. And also to request that if there were any funding next year, that we may be able to access some of that in order to progress a regional collaboration agreement. So those are the main recommendations, and I'm seeking your approval today to move forward on those if you're in agreement with the proposed approach from the SDP subgroup.
Thank you, Sarah. An excellent summary of where we were across those 2 meetings. Councillor Bryan.
Yeah, diolch yn fawr, Sarah. Yeah, I haven't discussed this with anybody else politically beforehand, but I'll definitely be pushing for option 1 anyway. I apologize, but I'm jumping forward a bit, Jake, with regards to the risk register. If you see RO2, changes in political leadership or priorities impacting strategic direction, that's high or red on that one, and also red on political changes or shifts in policy direction, CJC responsibilities, and also national inconsistencies of CJCs. That's low and amber, but I would put those in red as well. So we've got the election next year as well. So basically, I'd like to kick the can down the road as far as possible when it comes to this, because there are massive inconsistencies with regards to the CJCs anyway. I was going to mention the additional national park anyway, but obviously you covered that as well anyway. But no, I'm more than happy to propose that we go for option one, Jack. But I will listen to the arguments either way anyway.
Thank you very much. Gareth, Councillor Gareth, representing the National Park.
Apologies, my camera keeps for some reason won't switch on. Yeah, no, just to support Brian in what he's saying, for ourselves at Bannabr Ceiniog, we are struggling at the moment around capacity. So actually for us, the long term, looking at our LDP, and option one is the best option for ourselves. And I agree with Brian regarding the political stability, and what comes out of the political sausage machine in 2026 will be interesting. That's going to have to bed in, and for me, the uncertainty that will there. So I'm happy to second Brian in that the points is there, and thank you to the office for a detailed report. It was good to have that coming across.
Okay, well, I'm not going to talk us away from carrying on preparation with our LDPs. It's a position that we're in. That's explained by option one. In terms of what's coming forward then from the CJCs, we've got, as just to confirm in respect of the national park that we might have, and therefore the fourth partner, I have asked officers to prepare a report which supports the previous decisions of Powys Council to continue our objection against the national park, which hopefully continues the simple three-party system that we have here about regional collaboration, regional work. But I am keen that we do look to push forward with a collaboration agreement ourselves. I think there's a lot to be said for that. Whilst there's it would be the first, Sarah, but what I would be saying, and I think this came out very strongly in the previous meeting, the fund of £200,000 is sitting around at the moment, and that will be lost. And I note that the National Park at the moment is out to advert for a policy officer. We know we lack senior policy strength, and I think that we could make a proposition to the Welsh Government around regional collaboration, because I agree. I don't think an SDP is the way forward for us here. I think we can come forward with a shared statement of intent in a much simpler way. But I would like to see if we can formally attract that £200,000. So, Sarah, I recognise that's not what it's for, but it does sit there and is there for the asking. We met Ken Stakes, so that's the next item, but we met him when approving the regional transport plan and funding recently, and I raised this point with him, and he seemed sympathetic, although I couldn't put words into his mouth around that. So in respect of the options, I think option one is the right option for us. And in terms of the actions, I do think that we need to consider the collaboration agreement and whether we can draw down those resources as recommended in the actions here. And yeah, I see some nodding around that. Brian, you're content with that? So, Gareth, I saw Brian nodding, but you put your hand up.
Yeah, so no, I'm content with that, but I will say, obviously, as Bannabr Ceiniog as a minor player within this, and our size of our authority and our budget, I would like some conversations prior to moving forward on how we sit within that agreement. Our annual budget is just over 5 million. When you're talking yourselves, well over 3 million, 300 million each. So obviously, for us, it's ensuring that whilst we do go forward, that we're in the right place and a key partner within that. Just obviously, as chair of the parks, I need to say that.
Absolutely, but if we can secure £200,000, then that would be shared in providing a joint evidence base around what we were seeking to do. It doesn't go far, does it, Sarah? But it actually might support some of the resource that we need. And as I say, at the moment, we've got a paucity in the area that you're seeking to recruit for, Gareth, and the more shared intelligence that we have across the region, not only for the prep of the LDPs, but for that strategic planning data set that we have. I think the better. So I think by just being part of the agreement, I don't think there'd be a great cost burden, but there might be some benefit, Gareth, as I see it, if we're successful.
Yeah. I've got no problem with the principle, but obviously devil's in the detail. I just obviously got to back my corner as chair of the Bannabr Ceiniog.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, not trying to pull a fast one, but so we're quite happy then to support option one, confirm to the Welsh Government in respect of that, and negotiate in respect of those actions. And obviously, if that needs to come from me, Sarah, I'm sure you'll help me craft a suitably worded letter.
Yes, no problem. I'll start the work on those options. Okay.
So I'm just going to have a quick show of hands again, just so we're clear. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So the next item, I've got Chris Wilson as the report author, but I can't see Chris on the list. So is it John Forsey going to present the regional transport plan?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, so bit of an update on where we are with the regional transport plan. The regional transport plan was submitted to Welsh Government on the 23rd of May, and on the 30th of September, we had approval from the Cabinet Secretary around the RTP, so it is now an approved document. That's good. That's a bit of good news to start with. So the Welsh Government have also reviewed how they allocate grants, and they've amalgamated a whole load of grants to try and simplify the process rather than us all trying to bid for individual pieces of capital and revenue grant. And so what they've done now, we now have a capital funding which will be allocated to each region based on the general capital fund, which is based around the highways allocation that we used to receive. And similarly, the revenue funding that the region will receive is now based on the old road safety grant formula. In addition to that, there's around £100,000 for the CJP RTP administration for 26-27. The indicative allocations are shown in the table, and I will stress they are indicative. So for the Mid Wales region, it looks like we could receive around 12.8 million in capital and 172,000 in revenue funding. Now then, in order to draw down this funding, we need to have got our the regional transport delivery plans approved and to the Welsh Government by the 21st of November, with the intention the Welsh Government will feed us back on the 19th of December, with the final submissions being around the 30th of January 26. In order to achieve that, we need to seek guidance or approval from this board here now around how do we want to manage that process of getting the RTP to Welsh Government. Option one is for this board now to delegate authority to the RTP subcommittee to approve and submit the programme, or we can add an extra CJC board, which will have to be before the 21st of November. I think the next planned meeting it's in January, so it would require an extra meeting. So some key considerations. We have the governance arrangements, of course, but in addition to that, Chief Execs of Powys and Ceredigion have agreed the principle of hosting an RTP programme manager for Mid Wales. That will be funded initially out of the revenue allocation, but it is anticipated going forward that the capital allocation will fund that position. We need to be mindful that there's a fairly significant increase in the allocation that's been proposed from around about 5 million up to 12 million. And as Councillor Jake referred to earlier, we were in a meeting with the Cabinet Secretary. He was very keen that we get on and deliver this. We start to make some tangible programs. So that in itself, whilst it's really welcome, will put an increased demand on transport officers across the region around delivery and coordination. And of course, we need to comply with the legislative duties and align with the Welsh Government's policies. So, number of risks. I suppose the biggest risk is we've had an indication that the funding is what it is, 12.8 million, but that is subject to change. Of course, the Welsh Government's got to go through its budget approval, and then as being mentioned before, we just need to keep on ongoing with the risk management around the RTP. So that's it summarised briefly. Happy to take any questions.
So just as I understand it, you've said operationally the two chief executives have given an indication that we'll be moving forward with an appointed manager. There's 12.8 million to spend on that. So that's not a question you're asking us. That's something you're indicating is a proposal that you're taking forward. I'm quite content with that. What you seem to be asking in the report is whether or not we delegate this to the subgroup, or whether we slip in an extra meeting in order to just sign that off. Just wanted clarity about what you're actually asking us as a CJC board to consider.
That's correct, Councillor Joe.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. I'll bring Brian in now, if I may.
Ie, d'accord. Ie, a fi Kenny neges dwi'n cael dros ymwneud yn fi, Jake, a sy'n siŵr os ydych chi'n nodi yn yw'r anhegwch sy'n ar draws y cyd
Hang on a moment, my translation has stopped for some reason. It's disappeared.
I'll rewind. No, I just want to get the message across again, Jake. You know, the inconsistencies across the CJCs. Again, I'm referring to the risk register. And, John has just mentioned, with regards to capacity of officers in Cerrigon and Powys. So, we need to make the point clear, I think, anyway, on all aspects of the CJC, anyway, but particularly this one, anyway.
So, Brian, and sorry, Carol, I don't know why it just stopped halfway through. When John Forsey was talking, he went quiet. Yeah, so I don't know what's happened, but I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, I can. Yeah, sorry, I can hear you. So Brian, in respect of you're quite content with what the chief officers have indicated to control that. Are you wishing for it to come back here just for a sign off, in which case we have a separate meeting? So the subcommittee carries on doing its work and we sign it off here, or are we content just to get on at pace?
I think mae eisiau bod ni'n cael ein arwen gyda'r swyddogion, Jake, os yw'r swyddogion hapus bod ni'n gallu arwyddo fe bant nawr. Hapus yn neud hynny, ond os rhaid yn ôl ag wel, allwn ni cael cyfarfod ychwanegol, ond sa'n gweld y pwynt i cael cyfarfod ychwanegol os allwn ni sy'n efo off nawr. Fi'n hapus i sy'n efo off nawr.
Okay, so I don't think they're asking us to just sign it off now. I think what they're saying is delegate it to the subgroup. So I think let's delegate it to the subgroup. If what the subgroup do when they're discussing and finalising, if at that point, using their common sense as they have, they believe it would be helpful for the board to revisit it and sign it off. If that gave it extra weight, then let's have it back. But otherwise, Brian, let's delegate it as suggested for the subgroup. They've obviously done a great piece of work to win this resource, put a great plan together. So let's put our faith in them, shall we?
Yeah, os eisiau neud yn swyddogol, fi'n hapus i gynnig i delegate fe beth bynnag.
Thank you. Thank you very much. John?
So, yeah, just to clarify, this is about the creation of the regional transport delivery plan for next year. This is what we're seeking. Thanks.
Yeah, okay. Yes, but there's a bit more work to be done, wasn't it? Yeah, okay. So we're delegating that unless the subgroup feels that we need at some point within the deadlines contained in the report for us to just sign it off. Yeah, so you have our authority to carry on. Okay, I'm just going to ask us, Gareth and Brian, we'll just put our hands up in respect of that, just so we're clear. Yep, thank you very much. And then we have, is it Duncan, you're going to take us through the next item in terms of the economic report update?
I think it's me. I think Carwyn's going to look at this one.
Sorry, Duncan. I saw you. No, okay, Carwyn.
I'm happy to give a hospital pass to Duncan if he fancies it on a Wednesday morning. No. Thank you, Chair. As usual with the economic wellbeing update, it's affecting an amalgamation reporting from the various existing governance structures we've got in the Mid Wales region already. So what I've done, same as the last report, is provide a brief summary under each heading of sort of under economic wellbeing, all of the activity we're currently leading in Mid Wales. On the regional skills partnership, as you know, if there's a formal governance in place, I referenced effectively where the latest information can be found. But in terms of the regional skills partnership, they're progressing well against the 6 strategic objectives as a team, which is improving careers advice, work experience, fit for purpose training provision, leadership and management skills, apprenticeships, supporting the transition to net zero, and also aligning the skills needs of growth deal projects. And that's a particularly sort of important piece now as some of the growth deal projects start to near fruition, is ensuring that there are some quite detailed conversations with those project sponsors around effectively where are the skills demands, so that we can plan for those. The Careers in 360 platform is nearing launch, and I think it will be launched next month in November now. And I think as members, you will have seen Di showcase that interactive portal previously. There's also a pilot programme involving 6 schools, so 3 in each county, to connect students with local employers through school-based events, and other activity as well, with working with MEDA and looking at leadership and management qualifications as well. The other bit is the Regional Skills Partnership is actively involved in the post-16 review and has been involved in conversations on the Ceredigion side as well around Lampeter, so very much joining up the strategic dots there on that landscape. Moving on to the Mid-Wales growth deal, I think because there's an overlap with both yourself as leaders, I think you've seen parts of this report before, but what I'll do is highlight some of the most recent progress as well. But as you're all probably aware, we've got about sort of these sort of 5 projects now moved into delivery, and we have got sort of 9 projects overall sort of progressing in the growth deal. We've sort of ensuring that the strategic portfolio business case now is currently being updated, and there'll be a workshop on that on the 22nd of November. So I think as members, you've heard before that overall we've had a very positive assurance review from government recently, being an amber green, with 10 recommendations, and I'll talk to the Growing Mid-Wales board about those in the meeting next month. But overall, we're in a pretty positive position. Projects are starting to deliver, and as I said, the workshop in a couple of weeks' time now in person in Llandrindod, we'll go through effectively current state of play on the growth deal, but also importantly start talking about pipeline and if we've got some projects that are not proceeding or not proceeding at the pace we would like them to, or have no credible or viable pathway to proceed, then I think as members we'll discuss with you what options we've got in relation to those. But I don't want to say too much more because that will take the thunder out of the point of having a workshop on the 22nd of October. On the energy front, there's a huge amount of work happening here, and considering we've got a small team across the 2 local authorities and regionally, but we were successful in phase 2 of the Whole Systems Research, Innovation and Decarbonisation bid, which is a very catchy title from Welsh Government, but we're very grateful for it. So we've had funding for the sort of Llanidloes project, the Centre for Energy Equality, and we're hopefully going to get funding as well for the Lafan work on the sustainable utilisation of farm nutrients, and the First Milk project as well. So between those, there'll be £500,000 worth of projects running in the region in that sort of in the space. We are talking to sort of Nesta, 7Y Energy Agency, Chalach Energy, and other partners now around taking some of the ambitions forward that we had in the local area energy action plans. That's work in progress. From a resourcing perspective, I think I can confirm to members as well that we have made an appointment. We'll have a new regional energy lead. From a resourcing perspective, start with us next month on the 3rd of November. She will be joining us. She's currently on secondment to Welsh Government and Cardiff Council, and she's currently leading their climate change and energy team. So quite pleased to have this individual join us next month now. So they'll be leading the team. So we won't just have Hugh on his own battling on the energy front. We'll have more resource there. On the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, I won't go through the detail too much because the 2 local authorities manage this separately. But overall, as a region, we've got 92% funding commitments, and quite high spend levels now. I think the general message is obviously that this fund is coming to an end at the end of March. I think a lot of pressure on the local teams now to get the sort of remaining projects delivered, get spend through the door. As I've sort of outlined in section 6, a lot of the focus now is starting to go on beyond Shared Prosperity Fund, what comes next. So what I've done in section 6 for members is to try and articulate the latest information that we as officers know in terms of what's happening. So as I said, we know that the Shared Prosperity Fund is coming to an end in March 26, and we know there'll be a structure of local growth funding from UK government from 26-27 onwards. Whilst the spending review earlier in the year did not sort of earmark specific allocations for areas, there are sort of specific references to 350 deprived communities. Recently, we've seen the launch of the Pride in Place Impact Fund, so both Powys and Ceredigion have been defined as recipients of that, so each local authority receiving 1.5 million each. Some local authorities in Wales are receiving more significant allocations of £20 million each. So from our calculations, we anticipate that sort of about 10% of the 633 million that's been earmarked for local growth funding in Wales over the next 3 years. We still understand that discussions are still ongoing between UK and Welsh government, but I'm told by civil servants that they're nearing conclusion. I was of the understanding that Welsh government were going to establish their steering group for regional investment this week, but I understand that the Welsh Local Government Association has largely kiboshed that because they are pushing for a political tripartite discussion between UK government, Welsh government, and the Welsh Local Government Association, and I understand that's going to be happening next week. I think the Welsh government has signalled that they intend on launching a formal consultation on this in early October, supported by 4 regional engagement events. So myself and the teams in both local authorities will want to ensure that we have a Mid Wales event and presence and voice into that. But as I say, from 6.11 onwards, the transition from the current landscape to the next landscape, does present some opportunities and challenge. I think the Welsh government element into it is I think leaves us with some questions around the operating model compared to what we've got currently. The signal very much from Welsh government is around regional co-production, regional delivery, regional. So I think there'll be further conversations to be had. My comment on it is we haven't got a lot of time. We are experiencing a lot of pressures now in terms of obviously managing resources, both locally in the 2 local authorities and our other partners, our delivery partners externally. So, and we have, I think, both sort of reflected that via Welsh Local Government Association meetings and also directly to Welsh Government and UK Government that, we don't have a lot of time to plan for this. If there's a new funding landscape from the 1st of April, I think we've got some challenges. The other bit to note, which I haven't put in writing in the report, is we understand the funding model to be predominantly capital. So there's a sort of not a lot of revenue funding in the budget from next year onwards. So with the announcements already made and what's likely to come, I think the questions we are asking as officers now is, right, so how much funding will there be available? What's the likely allocation for Mid Wales, Powys, Ceredigion? What's the operating model? And from an officer perspective, it's very difficult to plan whether it is regional, local, whether the focus is. Until we know, we don't know, and unless we know, we can't plan. But I think that's an honest update on where we are with that report. So that's all for now, Chair.
Thank you much. And I did put my hand up at the point you got to energy, and I've got a couple of later points too. So just in the energy report, you talk about a forum that is going to be brought together. It's in the last paragraph in the energy section. Have we? I mean, clearly this is a big one for us. Planning forums, etc. Who will be involved in that? It says cabinet members and councillors. And do we have a date for that, or am I missing it somewhere, Carwyn?
I think I'm just trying to find the email now. I think they're planning it. I don't think there's a date yet. Okay. But the intention is to have members and officers in that across the 2 local authorities. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. And then just in relation to the very disappointing announcement regarding the £1.5 million that both authorities received, therefore up to £3 million across more than a third of the Wales landmass, is really disappointing out of the available resource. and I don't know whether formally we wish to make some representation about that. Brian and I were both in the WLGA meeting when that was revealed, and shock horror from some of our colleagues. They weren't aware they'd got £20 million. I'm not entirely sure whether I believe that some people weren't around the table when we certainly weren't. So I know you've just said the steering group has been kiboshed, and I think we were hearing through the WLGA that we wanted a tripartite arrangement around this. But can we be getting how do we make representations that either Brian or I is on that steering group, not just part of a consultation? We represent a third of the Wales landmass. We've been really sorely done by in respect of the grant funding going forward. We jointly chair the Rural Forum and represent, through that a huge area that. So I'm asking for advice, really, how we might be able to do that. So while you think about that, Carwyn, I've also got Councillor Gareth then wants to just come in and perhaps ask some additional questions or to respond to mine.
No, to respond to yours, Jake, and fully support you, and also as Banbury kind of what we can do to support you. Obviously, transport isn't part of our remit within the CJC, but what you're saying is true, and it's really important that obviously getting into our rural communities and within the national parks is part of what you're doing, because we get the benefits from it. So just to fully support you and whatever we can do to get behind yourself and Brian to make this happen, we're more than happy to support you on that.
Thank you very much. Carwyn, sorry, am I barking up the wrong tree, Carwyn, or do you think we ought to make a noise, make representation, and seek to be actively engaged in some way? And how do we do it?
Yeah, so I'll start with the regional investment. We ensured in the last round of discussions with Welsh Government, they had a similar model with regional investment steering group across Wales. We ensured that the two leaders were on that because it was chaired politically by Hugh Anchor Davis at the time. My understanding in conversations with the civil servants and the message that I've sort of provided is same format, same model, so you as leaders would be on that steering group. But I'm happy to take an action just to double check and get it in writing to confirm that. If I cannot confirm, then probably I'll escalate it back to yourselves to probably send a formal correspondence to Welsh Government to ensure that happens, if that's okay with you. Then on the energy front, I will just take an action also just to double check that the as I said, I'm just checking the emails, but yeah, it is the intention to invite members and officers, but I'll just ensure that happens as well.
Many thanks. I see no other hands, so we're happy to take this report for information. I'm getting a thumbs up, so thank you very much. And then that does bring us to the risk register, and it is your turn, Duncan. You can try and pass it to Carwyn as he did, but I don't think he's looking to accept it.
I'm having a quiet meeting today, Chair. No finance reports. I think I'm going to segue to Natalie. I think you lead on this, Natalie.
Yes. I'll come in there. Thank you, Chair. Bore da pawb. So the paper before you presents the updated Mid Wales Corporate Joint Committee Risk Register. As noted in the report, this forms part of our regular assurance cycle and reflects the most recent review by officers across all CJC functions. As we've discussed in this meeting, we've also identified 2 emerging risks, which will be added to the next iteration of the risk register, which is that ongoing external uncertainty around the proposed national park and the impact that could have on our CJC and our region. And also the statutory requirement to prepare an SDP, but obviously we've agreed mitigation actions towards that today, so that will be included on the risk register and added to it. Other than that, overall, no significant changes. There are a lot of red high risks there, but the revisions and additions strengthen our forward view and support more proactive management. The officer group will continue to monitor and update the risk register quarterly, ensuring any new and emerging risks are captured and escalated where appropriate. But I'm happy to make the changes that Councillor Bryan suggested earlier and to take any comments. Thank you, Chair.
So, Brian, your hand is up. Is that to reiterate your points that Natalie's accepted, or have you got another?
Na, bendant, Jake. Na, diolch o ti, Natalie. Na i cyfeirio ar 6 National Inconsistencies of CJC. Bydden ni'r ar yna yn goch gyrwydd ydy. Mae yna bapur yn dod trwy'r Cymdeithas Llywodraeth Leol fop iawn, Jake, o ran taliadau aelodau etholedig. Un o'r argymellion o hynny yw bod caderyddion cydbwyllgorau yn cael arian ychwanegol tra bod nhw yn y gader. Rhwng y ddoi ni, yn eitha brysur rhwng y fargen dwf a'r cydbwyllgor yma, felly byddwn ni'n croesawu hynny, ond mae rhaid edrych ar y sefyllfa prifweithredwyr hefyd, achos i ni'n partneriaeth bach, mae Emma a Ifan yn rhannu dyled swyddau, heb unrhyw arian ychwanegol o Lywodraeth Cymru, felly dwi ddim yn siŵr beth allwn ni wneud i'r perw hynny, ond chwed amser chi weld yr partneriaethau arall yn gallu fforddio i talu prifweithredwyr, dim ond yn benodol ar gyfer yr elfen yma'r gwaith. Mae yna anhegwch difrifol ar draws Cymru, felly sa'n siŵr byddwn ni'n croesawu bod Emma a Ifan yn bwydo mewn i'r sylwad yna os ych chi'n hapus yn neud.
So I think there's an invitation for a response. Gareth, I'll bring you in before and then I'll invite the chief executives to make a response if they wish to do so.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, just coming in support on R006 national. I would like the word regional put in there, and the reason I say regional is actually for us at Bynabrook sitting on 3 JCs, we're going to be pulled in different places. So actually nationally, but regionally for us, it is going to impact with us more severely, possibly. I don't know. So that's why I'm happy, with Brian's comments regarding actually being red, because for us in Banai, it does cause some issues, and for me, it's regional as well.
Natalie, having heard those arguments, are you content with that, with your experience in pulling these together to escalate that? Obviously, nuancing the narrative to accommodate what has been said by both Brian and Councillor Gareth.
Yes, yeah, I'm happy, and it would be consistent with the earlier risks that feed into that as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I will just invite Ivan and Emma, if you wish. So Brian has indicated that in a subsequent consultation to be sent out in respect of from the WLGA around payments, he suggested there's unfairness and inconsistency, and that you may wish to engage with that at the time of the consultation. So you can either do it later or just give us an indication now.
Yeah, diolch ar y cadeirydd. Fi'n credu o'n safbwynt i, mae yn mynd yn gros gran i fi bod swyddogion yn bod y ddisgwyliad ar swyddogion ac ar gynghorwyr i weithio yn wirfoddol, yn ranbarthol, ac yn ymsugno lot fawr o amser ac egni y bobl hynny. Dim ond mwyn rhoi tic yn y bocs bach i broses Llywodraeth Cymru. I ni wedi dadle dros yr amser bod yr gwaith ar ymdrech sy'n mynd mewn i'r CJC yn anferthol i bawb. Odi i chi fel caderyddion, odi ni fel prifweithredwyr, ond mae bob swyddog sydd ar y sgrin yma, mae'n llyncu amser ryfedda i baratoi adroddiadau, i gyd yn ffurfio gyda gofynion. Yn y pethefnos diwetha, wedi cwrdd gyda 2 gomisiynydd sydd yn gwthio ni o ran gofynion stydidol dyle fod i'r CJC. A sy'n mots faint dwi'n gweithio nhw, i ni wedi cwrdd gyda uwchsyddogion Llywodraeth Cymru ac yn dadle'r achos bod ni ddim yn cyflogi bobl yn y CJC, felly dylen ni ddim fod yn atebol am yr disgwyliad yna. Mae'r comisiynwyr yn gweud, mae'r deddfwriaeth yn gweud bod rhaid i chi wneud. A wi jyst yn meddwl mewn cylchoedd gyda ni. Mae Emma wedi brwydro'r achos yma, a fi wedi brwydro'r achos yma nawr ers dros blwyddyn a hanner. Ond y broblem yw, oherwydd byd ni ddim yn cydymffurfio gyda'r model sydd yn cael ei ddatblygu yn y rhanbarthau eraill, bron i ni'n cael yn cosbi wedyn trwy wneud hynny. A fi'n credu bod wrth ymateb mae rhaid i ni droedio yn ofalus, achos os ydyn ni'n parhau i gadw'r gyfundrefn yma yn ei le i ni sydd yn siwto ni orau, yna mae Llywodraeth Cymru mynd i droi rownd a gweud, wel, dych chi ddim yn cydymffurfio gyda'r deddfwriaeth, felly pam dylech chi gael eich dalu'n fwy? heb cydnabod faint yn fwy o waith yw e, jyst er mwyn boddio darn o bapur mewn reality, achos mae'n bach o ffars y cyfarfod y CJCs yma. A dwi'n ddim yn amarch unrhyw un person o gwbl. I ni'n cydweithio'n agos iawn gyda'n gilydd, heb y strwythyr yma yn ei le. Mi'n credu gallu fedrwn ni ymfalchio yn y ffaith. Mae'n nid chwarae gêm o gydweithio i ni'n neud. Mae'r cydweithio wirioneddol yn digwydd o ddydd i ddydd yn gyson iawn. A mae'n nonsens o gael CJC yn ei le a rhyw stamp yn ganolbarth Cymru. Wel, naill llai mae Llywodraeth Cymru'n gweud mae yna swm enfawr o arian ar gael i dalu bobl am y gwaith rhanbarthol stydidol sydd yn ddisgwyliedig ohonyn nhw, neu gadewch i ni bwrw mlaen heb yr holl biwrocratiaeth yma sydd yn cyfrannu dim at yr agenda cydweithio agos sydd gyda ni'n barod. So yna marn personol i, a wy'n ddigon apus i leisio'r barn yna i bwy bynnag sy'n mae'n gwrando.
Thank you very much, Ivan, and I totally agree. If it's a matter of conform and get paid, or carrying on as we are, and unfortunately don't get paid, I'd rather carry on as we are, because I don't want, certainly not between now and in a rush between now and the elections, to jump through a series of hoops that actually we feel are just wrong and don't fit the way that we work and want to work. So I think it's fair to make a representation about just reward across the piece, but I wouldn't sacrifice the quality of the relationship we've got for conformity in order to have some other gain. I wouldn't want to do that. Emma, did you want to add anything? I think Ivan made an excellent case, but
I'd just reiterate the point in terms of the added bureaucracy with no added value. And then the element for me is just around fairness and equity and reducing the inequality. That's all. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I think we can probably navigate this when we need to in a way that is sensitive to the points that have been made, but not changing for change's sake. I think that would be playing into other people's agenda rather than our own very good agenda that we have here. So thank you. We've agreed to make changes to the risk. Oh, sorry, Ivan, please do come back.
Yeah, so sorry, Jake. I was just going to make one other point. In relation to the funding streams that are coming down our track, with the exception of the RTP funding, one of the things that is getting completely under my skin with Welsh Government funding models is that the dependency on the Welsh Index of Multiple Deprivation, they use that card over and over and over again, and the complexities about how they cut and slice and dice the data sets always benefits urban-centric authorities down, especially down in the southeast or the northeast. And what's missing in this equation every single time is the acknowledgement of rural poverty. Now, we've recently put rural poverty on our corporate risk register, and looking at R001, I think that we possibly want to reference the misuse or even challenge the use of those sets of data in the way that they're applied, because for the 1.5 million we are having, we've tried to analyse, well, how have they come to the conclusion that we only get 1.5 million? The complexity of what they've done, it makes it almost impossible to calculate how they can justify it. And they've done that deliberately, because it then justifies how they're going to spend somewhere else. And high time, I think, that we start calling that out more and more, because it is, in my view, the misuse of the Welsh Index of Multiple Deprivation is misleading, the misguiding funding formula for the future for all of us. So I think we could strengthen that section specifically around what data sets are used and what metrics are applied in order to calculate funding models going forward.
Is that a change to R001, or is that actually an additional risk? Because it feels like a stretch against R001, but very valid nonetheless.
Yeah, I think the funding models are fundamental to everything. So
yeah,
I think the point that's why I would have left it in R001.
Yeah,
because
okay, that's fine.
It's not just saying that there's inequity in the level of funding we get. You go into the root cause of the problem. It's how they determine various funding, what data sets they use to determine how to share the money out.
And I suppose what is running through my mind is it's so what? We can amend R001 here. You've put it on your corporate risk register. We've got the finance meeting in Cardiff coming up shortly. It's the what are we then going to do with that? Because quite clearly, if we look at the old European funding models, Mid and West Wales came out as some of the most impoverished areas across the whole of Europe. And that is probably still the case, and yet that isn't coming through loudly. So if we are looking at modelling and making representations in respect of the formula, we need to do that more than just this. We need a coordinated approach, and that may be something that comes across more strongly through the CJC. So I'm wondering about next steps. And I've lined that up very nicely for Duncan and Diane to come in and give us some advice.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to comment on R001 in terms of it's that word budget allocations, which we need to expand into sort of funding distribution methodology. It's the methodology of how they distribute the funds, which is causing us the headache. And then coming back to your latter point there, the space we're starting to think in, and we've got some people in our a performance team who've looked at the Pride in Place stuff, and as Avian said, it's hugely complex. It's a mixture of the Welsh Index of Multiple Deprivation and something called the Welsh Community Needs Index, some of which goes back to 2016-17. It's a huge complexity of how they've arrived at who should or shouldn't get what levels of funding. But I think what we need to do in the space we're trying to start to think into is what data sets would work in our benefit. So is there something around average household income? It's probably a number of data sets interlinked that we just need to keep playing with data sets until we find the right ones that portray that rural poverty dynamic better and get away from the urban centric. So I haven't got an answer, but I know our performance team is starting to look at it, and that's the challenge we've posed to them. Well, between my team and in finance and the performance team is how can we look at the range of data sets that are available and start choosing ones that are more in our favour. And then we've got a case to say, okay, we're unhappy, but actually we've got a proposed solution if we can find the right data sets that would be far more favourable. I suspect that journey isn't a 2-minute job. I think there's going to be quite a lot of effort needed in that place to keep playing with data sets, keep looking at layers of data sets and try and find something or more than one that work in our favour for a change.
Thank you very much. Di, can I bring you in, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Through the Rural Forum, which you as leaders are all part of, along with many other rural authorities, you've come up with the Rural Manifesto working with WLGA. I don't see that we've had any real acknowledgement from Welsh Government, any consideration for the ambition that's in that Rural Manifesto, which we could really push on to say, well, how are they going to support that manifesto? And then also in terms of the allocations, obviously we've just been winners in the transport element. So I know a lot of that is based on road network length, but also that is a consideration in terms of people moving around, isn't it, and being able to provide services. So we could look at that methodology as a kind of basis as well. And I think previously as we did a piece on the cost of delivering services rurally that we took to the Senedd quite a few years ago now, Emma, isn't it? But I think we could dig that out and have a refresh as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. I just think that we do need to keep batting this about at every opportunity we can, whether it's rural deprivation indexes or, we've had reports, haven't we, poverty in paradise and things like that. We've got the Rural Manifesto, but are they landing? Are we making an impact with that? The Pride of Place stuff indicates that we're not getting anywhere in terms of some of the big monies available. And I know I'm going slightly off piece, but Brian and I met met with Nia Griffiths at the Royal Welsh Show days before it appears she was replaced by Joe Stevens. I've had no notification of that whatsoever. I've had no indication from Joe she wants to come and meet us, and I'm wondering whether, Brian, we need to reach out ourselves from the CJC and say, come and meet us here in mid Wales, and express our disappointment about this Pride of Place funding, etc. Because it's UK money, and I guess it comes through her in some way. So I would, if you agree, Brian, value Carwyn or Diane or somebody getting us an invitation to Joe to come here so she can hear and see some of this direct. Yeah, okay, Brian, and I'll bring you back in, sorry.
Ie, na, cytuno gyda ni, Jake. Mae'r ddoi yn lobio gwmyn allan ni beth bynnag. Clywed yr un stori fydden nhw. Felly, o'n i'n yn ôl rhan pwyntiau o ran yr manifesto'r fforwm wledig. Bydd lawnsiad hwnnw yn y sioe fawr beth bynnag. Gen i o ran y diffyg ymateb, o'n i'n targedu fi mwy o ran ôl Mai 26. Hynny yw, unwaith bydd Llywodraeth Newydd yn ei le, maen nhw'n gwybod beth yw'n deiadau ni fel fforwm wledig. Felly, o'n i'n gobeithio wrth o mas o hwn yn gynnar yn ystod y sioe, cyn bod y pleidiau arall yn gwneud manifestos eu hunain ar gyfer y etholiad. Wel, maen nhw'n gwybod beth yw gofynion ni. Felly, mwy na thebyg, dyna pam chi heb cael ymateb i'r manifesto yna, beth bynnag.
Thank you very much. So that answers that. And can I just, I saw Diane nodding, can I take it there's agreement that we approach from the CJC, Joe Stevens, and extend a warm welcome to something or other that we can materialise so that we have a platform in which to make representations, and you'll put something together for us with that. Yeah, Brian's thumbs up, Diane's nodding. Thank you very much. That's a good action to take out of the risk concern that Ivan and Duncan have amended for us there under R001. So the next item on the agenda, and I did say we'd be done by 10, didn't I, is any other business. I'm not pre-advised of anything, but has anything either arose here or is in the offing that either members or officers want to share?
No, not from me.
No, thank you very much. Date and time of next meeting, I've got no idea, unless we'll be advised.
29th of January.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So all that remains then is to thank everyone for their attendance today and the effort that has gone in presenting the papers. I very much appreciate the dialogue that we've had today. So thanks all. And
diolch yn fawr, Jack.
Well, see you soon. Thank you.
Diolch pawb.